I got exposed to coding very early on in my life. So this was 1996. I was 11 years old, and I was studying at a boys' school in Lucknow. So where they had like 386 and 486 PCs. I found some manuals on disk operating systems and on C and C++. We taught ourselves just by reading those manuals how to code, how to do all sorts of things, and we sort of fell in love with building, especially small arcade games. So that was the time of arcade games. We did not have very complex. I mean, maybe Wolf was the most complex game at that time.
But what led you to finally taking that jump?
This 50 million number and all, I did not know at that time. So that jump came out of foolishness more than anything else. But thank God for foolishness.
Why the name AutoNinja?
Because we very clearly wanted to be a vertical specific company. It was going to be auto. And we wanted to sort of give the sense that we are stars or ninjas of that space. The vision was that this software is going to become so much sort of advanced that we would know more about running a dealership than anybody else.
Very interesting.
We were almost a monopoly in India. There was no other company doing CRM in the dealership space in India. So people were willing to give us a large amount of money. So the first customer we signed up was willing to pay us 75,000 rupees every month, which was huge for us. So this is massive.
Welcome to another dynamic episode of Damani Talks, because we have someone who's really been relentless his entire life. And so he's a tech leader, started coding almost before he was even a teenager. He's set up a company, then set up a second company, got acquired by a larger company, worked for that company. And then after that, he's created a very unique venture fund where he's only concentrating on a very specific vertical, I would call it a theme, and has some amazing, I think, stories to tell us, but also a lot to learn from his actual journey. So without further ado, I'd love to invite Mr. Kshitij Saxena of Relentless Ventures to come and talk to us. Kshitij, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Anirudh, and thanks for that very kind introduction.
So how do you feel today?
Uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable. Okay. Let me make sure that we stay there, because that's where most of the learning happens, right?
That's true.
So Kshitij, very interesting background. You started out, you were born in Lucknow, Uttar Pradesh, right? And from there, I mean, well, the early journey, we'll talk a little bit about it. You did the regular IIT, IIM combo, which is now, I think there's a break in that combo these days, but there used to be a IIT Kanpur and then IIM Bangalore, right? Which is a combo. Like, you did that, and then you had a very interesting journey because you decided to become a founder. I think you had 2 years of work ex and you decided to become a founder. But let's just talk about this bringing yourself up in Uttar Pradesh and the sort of family background you had, because I believe your father was an entrepreneur too, right?
Yes.
And in a very difficult space, power in UP, right? It must be very interesting.
In socialist times.
Yeah, exactly.
He started in 1988-89. This was pre-liberalization, so
Correct.
Proper socialism. The only payer in the whole country probably was the government. So you had to be an entrepreneur.
And not a great payer, by the way.
Oh, yeah. I've heard too many stories, so yeah.
But tell us a little bit about that, about what drove you to IIM Bangalore and to the eventual start of your founding journey.
Yeah, so my childhood. I was born, brought up in Lucknow. Lucknow is a fantastic small town. At least it used to be a small town. It's much bigger now, but it was a very vibrant community. Lots of great food, lots of culture. So I loved growing up in Lucknow, and the only interesting thing, or one interesting thing that happened with me was that I got exposed to coding very early on in my life. So this was 1996. I was 11 years old, and I was studying at a boys' school in Lucknow.
Okay.
And it had a sort of a computer lab. So where they had like some 5 or 6 these 386 and 486 PCs, if you remember that time. And in there, I discovered that very few people, at least in the school, understood how these things are to be programmed, how these things are to be used. And somehow I found some manuals on disk operating systems and on C and C++, and just taught myself, me and another friend of mine, 2 of us, we taught ourselves just by reading those manuals how to code, how to do all sorts of things.
Right.
And we sort of fell in love with building small pieces, especially small arcade games. So that was the time of arcade games. We did not have very complex. I mean, maybe Wolf was the most complex game at that time. Wolf 3D. So
Or
it
Doom,
was
I think, right?
Yeah, at least I was not very exposed to Doom, but Wolf was something I was exposed to, and Prince of Persia and stuff like
Prince of
that.
Persia, yeah.
And so we fell in love in making those kind of small arcade games, again in C and C++ using whatever graphics tooling these guys had at that time. And the next 6 odd years of my school life, that's primarily what I did.
Wow.
Then
Very much sounds like another techie that built a very big company called Microsoft.
it's okay. That's okay.
He also had access to a similar lab, and that changed his life.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's a lot of people's journeys. Some told, some not told. But yeah, so that's what happened. Then I got to college. College was IIT, and tried various other things apart from coding there. Tried to sort of figure out how these student leadership things work. Then after that, worked for a couple of years at a company called iRunway, which was a patent litigation outsourcing company. And my job there was, for a month about, I also tried to make claim charts and whatnot. Then I said, this is not my cup of tea. So I asked the founder, who was also from IIT Kanpur, I asked him, what else is there? And he said that there is a small team which is trying to build some software tools, and they want to sell those same software tools back into the same law firms in the US where they were anyway selling services to. So I said, let me take a look at that. And I realized that that's where I could really contribute.
I see.
It was, to say a small team was actually an exaggeration. It was just one other person. So I and him, we started building things for them, and we ended up building 3 very interesting software visualization tools, which these guys use to sort of visualize patent families, visualize technology evolution, and hopefully sell some of those visualization tools to law firms.
You were there
in
for
the
a
US.
couple of years, I think.
2 years, yeah.
And then you went for IIM after that.
Then I don't know. I wrote CAD. So the one thing was I was very clear by that time that this is it. I want to start my own company. I'd seen my father's journey, and let me actually delve on that a little bit.
I would love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So my
Because there are very few people that you. I mean, okay, I had a father who built a business in Mumbai, but Mumbai was a little bit maybe a different world compared to the eastern part of northeastern part of India, and to know somebody in power, which even today I think is one of the most corrupt regimes in India, right? Because it's misused for political purposes. But for someone to become a founder in a place like UP, and for you to witness that, it has to inspire parts of your journey and the parts of why you would be relentless in certain places, because you've seen what your father must have gone through. So I would love to learn a bit about this journey, please.
Yeah, so he was a first generation entrepreneur.
Achha.
My grandfather was a farmer, primarily agricultural income fundamentally, in a small village called Balrampur. It recently became a district, but it was a proper village in that time. And he came from there. And even getting to college, so he used to tell me that he would not have had an education had it not been for sports. So he was a very good fast bowler.
Acha, your father?
Yeah.
Acha.
So he got to a 3-year diploma on sports quota, which otherwise he would not have had access to. His education would not have happened had he not been a great bowler.
Really? Wow.
So he got into a polytechnic in Lucknow, and 3 years studied electrical engineering. And after that, worked at a couple of engineering services firms, doing again, substations, power plants, power distribution lines, transformers, all those kind of things. So all of that, and then in 1988 decided that he will step out and start his own company.
Wow.
And I mean, there's no, at least I don't know the inception story there, because and many people have heard him answer this question, and I still have a muddled view of what the inception story is. But somehow he started his own company in 1988, fully socialist times, and again in the power sector, where he has fundamentally, it's a government monopoly.
Yeah.
So you are serving, you're a contractor
Even
to the
today,
government.
very much. I mean, I would say 90-80% government monopoly.
Yeah. So doing contracts for the government, and he built that company up really nicely. So I think by
What
around
was the business exactly?
So it was contracting work for all sorts of power contracts.
Okay.
So setting up of substations, setting up
Like
of
an
step
EPC
down.
services.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so various kinds of turnkey contracts.
Got it.
And Electrification was, of course, going to be taken up in India, so of course that helped. And over about, I think, 12, 13 years, he built it up to be the largest power contractor in Uttar Pradesh.
Okay.
And did well, and went through a lot of stories of how to deal with the departments, the government departments, how to sort of do that business, how to collect money. And you can also imagine, so all these strong men of UP, so so it was a very tough business to build.
Yeah.
But he actually did it, and it was quite quite inspirational.
Did he
honestly.
eventually sell the business? What did he?
So these kind of things don't get sold.
Acha.
I mean, who would you sell it to? At least, I mean, maybe they can be, they could have gotten sold, but his life was not very long. He passed away in 2011.
Sorry.
Esophageal cancer. And when it happened, so it was very interesting. There were three partners. Two of them got cancer at the same time and passed away at exactly the same time.
Oh wow.
So it was very strange, but it happened. And then, so of course, no selling that company. So
And I'm sure we'll come to this a little bit later again. But in terms of your entrepreneurial journey, were there moments where seeing your father and his struggle, because there had to be a struggle, right? It was.
Oh, yeah.
I'm 100% sure it was not the 25-year journey of building that company would not have been
Yeah.
some flat plane, I mean, on a flat incline, especially in power. But what was what do you take as inspiration from being so close to him in that journey?
learning.
Hmm.
The amount of learning my father had in building this company,
I see.
of how the world works, how does politics work, how does the government work, how does all sorts of contracting work, how does accounting work, how does
Collections work, I guess.
how does the bank work, how do collections work. And he was, one great thing about him was he used to come and share that in the house.
Oh, really? Wow.
While me and my younger brother, we were young kids, with us, with our mother, he used to be very open. Ki, I saw this today and this sucks, or that this is very interesting. I found a very interesting solution today to some problem that had been plaguing for maybe 6 months or something. And so that learning was very inspirational for me. I could see very clearly that my father knew more about the world than most other people I'd interacted
Right.
with, and that inspired me to sort of pursue the same path.
And your mother's also very accomplished. I believe MA in Sanskrit.
Yeah, yes. She had a very good education. She was in Lucknow University, at the top of her class in Sanskrit.
Wonderful, wonderful. And then you had a small stint as summer associate in Barclays as well.
Yeah, so when I was at IIM, there was a 3-month internship that you have to do. It's part of the course, and it was a campus placement. So these guys from Barclays, New York, had come over and did a bunch of interviews. Took a couple of us to.
You also spent some time abroad, I think, before you decided to turn entrepreneurial.
No. Just these 3 months at Barclays.
That was the abroad stint. And so, I mean, usually IIT, IIM, you would have loved to live abroad, right? I mean, and you had a good shot at doing that.
Yeah, no. So again, for me, the prime mover was entrepreneurship, to build something of my own, to really learn how the world works. And going abroad was something that came very late. Even my full exposure to what is it to do business out of India, it took me a lot of time to learn. And so it was sort of always a secondary thing. It was never primary.
And your first business was in gaming.
Yes.
Very interesting. So 2012 India, you're talking about barely 50 million people on the internet, if that. And most of them, would gravitate towards games overseas, right? Because of many other reasons. But 2012 is a very difficult time to do gaming in India. You decided to do that. And I'm guessing it's because of the early exposure you had to gaming when you were in school. But what led you to finally taking that jump?
So this 50 million number and all, I did not know at that time.
Correct.
And I did not succeed as a gaming entrepreneur. So
But to take that jump, right? I mean,
to
it's
take the jump.
yeah.
So that jump came out of foolishness more than anything else. But thank God for foolishness, because why that jump came in. So again, we wanted to. We were very clear. Me and Rahul Bendre. So he was my roommate at IIT Kanpur, wingmate for quite some time, and. He was working at a branch of Citibank in those 2 years while I was working for Ironway.
I see.
And after that time, he said that, hey, I'm done with this. I also want to start something. And I said, okay, definitely. I've also decided that I'll not take up a job after IIM. So let's do something. And what was that something going to be? The only thing we knew was that he also knew how to build games. I also knew how to build games. So let's build games, because it's not like we know anything else.
Correct.
And within that journey, though, we had so many iterations. We tried so many things. We first tried some kind of a board game. We saw, can we build a board game? Would that work? Then we tried 3-4 different kinds of games on the Facebook platform. and nothing worked. Why? Because of course we did not understand anything about the world at that point. We were just very young students. We did not know, what e-commerce was going to be like, or any of those notions. We did not have
Yeah,
any
and
idea.
I mean, like I said, there's such a small number of people, at least from India, and who would be transacting online. It's a very small, minuscule market.
Yeah.
But
Whatever it
what
was.
kind of games were you building?
Oh, so simple. Some word games, some other kinds of simpler games, some flash games. So those kind of things in that
Acha.
time.
And I think at the peak you had some 30,000 MAUs.
One word game did well for us. It got us to about 30,000 users.
And was
But
it revenue generating?
of course not. Casual games on Facebook, of course, no revenue.
Acha. And then eventually, I think you decided to shut it. You ran this for a couple of years.
Yeah, we did about 2.5 years in that, and after that we had realized we were not going to do this. We don't understand this space. Second, we had also started to understand what kind of software will work in India.
Acha.
And the thesis we had developed by that time was that while we were doing these games which are not making any money for us, to make some money, we used to do some software consulting.
I
So we would
see.
go make a website for somebody, we would go do an ERP module for somebody else. Somebody has an existing ERP module, they want some changes, we'll go make for them. So those kind of things we used to do. And that kind of consulting we did for small businesses because those were accessible to us. So
Got it.
maybe to some hospital somewhere, some consulting work, maybe to
And
a retail
this
chain
was
somewhere.
all officing out of which city?
Bangalore.
Bangalore.
We were incubated at IIM Bangalore.
Okay.
So we had an office space there. We were like 3-4 people, and we were doing these consulting projects on the side while trying to build those games as our thing. And in doing those consulting projects, we had sort of started to understand what kind of software works. And our thesis by 2013 was that in 2013 in India, if you have to build a software company and make money for a software product, you have to do something which is revenue enhancing for the customer. If you can impact the guy's revenue, you're fine. He might still pay you. But if you can't impact his revenue, if you're an efficiency improvement software, some kind of a cost saving software, those things had much less, I would say, purchase. And
But I feel that's the case even today. Maybe it's not.
Yeah.
Maybe better than that, but even today, I think most Indian entrepreneurs are still, or businesses, you could say, still feel that unless you show me how you're making me revenue,
yeah.
you're a cost.
Absolutely. So that thing exists, and so we had figured that out. That hey, whatever it is you're doing, do something which improves the customer's revenue.
Right.
The second thing was we had figured out that if you do something in a specific vertical, then you have a higher chance of becoming sticky or going so deep that the customer will find it hard to sort of remove you.
Become critical, mission critical for them.
Yeah, become critical for them. So with that thesis, we sort of started again thinking about hey, what kind of vertical revenue improvement software can we make for, let's say, a hospital, or do we understand, let's say, the retail business enough to build something for a chain? And what had happened was that we had done a consulting project for an auto dealer by that time. It was a Maruti dealer,
Acha.
and the dealer had given us a contract to build out a mobile application for them. So this is 2013, and Android applications, iOS applications are very new in India. So this guy said that hey, these things have novelty value. I'll pay you some money as a service. Build out applications for us, and
These were like consumer facing or internal?
consumer facing application. He wanted an application for his consumers, and he wanted to market that to sort of differentiate himself against other dealers.
I see.
So to be able to say that hey, we have these applications that other people don't have, so buy from us, or do your services with us, or buy insurance from us, or whatever.
And what were these apps supposed to do?
These were just so these were sort of shop fronts where you as a consumer would get your service history. You would know your service reminders would be there, your insurance policies would be there. So sort of you will not need to keep these things anywhere. It was sort of a digital wallet for you.
Got it.
And the way we built this for him was that we integrated with his CRM provider, and we gave this application to him. And he was quite happy. He paid us. We were happy. We got paid. That was great. Then we thought that let's go to other dealers and see if they want the same solution. So we went to a Hyundai dealer and we sold the same thing. That hey, this thing works. Here is proof. Do you want it? He said, obviously, great, awesome. Here's an advance check. We want it. We said, wow, great. Let's make applications for auto. This is great. Then we said, okay, please do connect us to your CRM team. We will do the integration with them.
Got it.
They said, CRM, what is that? so we said, what do you mean by CRM? What is that? How do you manage your data? How do you manage any of your infrastructure? How do you manage your marketing on top of data? What do you do? So we said that, hey, we have a team to do this kind of service marketing, insurance marketing. It's at Mission Road. Go there and meet those folk and they will tell you how they do it. I said, okay, fine. So I and Rahul, we went there. So we arrived at this place. This is a workshop. Okay, so imagine there are like some 300 cars in a big lot, and they are servicing those cars every day. And in that lot, there is a basement. Okay, practically a basement, where when we enter, we find that there are these 40 women who are all wearing blue Hyundai sarees, And what they're doing is they are making. We are sort of watching them, and we are seeing that what their workflow is. They have these landlines in front of them.
Okay.
They're picking these phones up and dialing numbers all day, and just entering whatever the customer says on paper. And the idea was that, so this was their entire CRM operation, that you have to do service reminders, you have to do insurance reminders. So you have these 40 women, everybody has a sheet of paper in front of them. They have to read the numbers from them, call
CRM
customers.
was manual actually.
Absolutely. So then we spoke to the head of that department and said, so she was a lady, and we asked her, how do you manage these 40 women? What do you do? And she said, what I do is I have this invoicing software which Hyundai has given me. And in this invoicing system, I have all my service invoices. So this is now April of 2013 or whatever. So I will go back and see in April of 2012, who were the people who did service with us. And these are like 20,000 people or some large number like that, because it's a large dealership. So I'll take those 20,000 invoices, and it's like Excel sheets is how this works. So I'll print those Excels out on these sheets of paper. Then I will, every week, Monday morning, I come 1 hour early. I break this Excel sheet printouts, and I put one on front of all of those 40 ladies. And then they make calls every week. They write the statuses there, and I rinse and repeat. Next Monday, I do the same thing. So then we had that epiphany that this is highly inefficient, very strange for us. And second, this is a highly revenue impacting operation, because for a dealer, maybe 60-70% of their profits are coming from service and insurance upsells. Resells, sorry, not even upsells. And if this is managed in this way, of course it's inefficient. If we impact this process, it will hit the guy's revenue immediately. So with that thesis, we said, leave this application, let's build a CRM.
And then you started with AutoNinja.
Yeah.
That's what it's called.
Yeah.
Why the name AutoNinja?
So we wanted to, again, because we were very clear, we wanted to be a vertical specific company.
Got it.
It was going to be auto. And we wanted to sort of give the sense that we are stars or, ninjas of that space, that, hey, we will build something. So the vision was that this software is going to become so much sort of advanced that we would know more about running a dealership than anybody else.
Very interesting.
And
so tell me about the journey now. So this is like 2014, I think you started this?
2013 August is when we started.
August, okay. Oh wow, we're exactly 11 years later. And then what happened from there? Like you raised some venture capital, very early days of VC also, SaaS, very early days for SaaS in India.
Yeah, it was not called SaaS at that time. We did not call ourselves SaaS, or VCs did not call us SaaS. We were just a software product.
Achha.
And the story was that, so we were clear that we will not raise VC. We were clear we will not get VC, because in these 2.5 years of trying to run this gaming company, one mistake or whatever I had done was I had met every single VC and angel who was operating in India. There were about 40 people who were operating in India, and I had met everybody. And everybody had, of course, said no to us with in a varying spectrum of reasons. So my thesis at that time was that I'm not going to be able to raise money no matter what. So let's not even try. The good thing with this CRM system was that it was very clearly a revenue impacting thing, very clearly a mission critical thing. So people were willing to give us a large amount of money. So the first customer we signed up was willing to pay us 75,000 rupees every month, which was huge for us. So this is massive. Then the second guy we sold to was willing to pay us 50,000 a month, and so on and so forth. So our thesis was, hey, it's possible. There are 4 founders. We need to get to 5 lakh rupees monthly. If we get there, we will survive. So forget VC, just get to 5 lakhs a month in revenue.
Got it.
So that's the journey we started. And within 6 months of that journey, the product was doing well. It had early stickiness. Our articulations must have been good, because Mukul Singhal of SAF Partners, some were heard of us and came to our office, met us, and we did not even have a deck. In fact, the funny thing is, he liked us, he liked whatever, and he did not say, VCs are always sort of tight-lipped, so they don't tell you how much they like you or don't like you. So he didn't tell us that he liked us, but he just kept interacting with us. And he said, fine, I want you to make a presentation to somebody else at SAF. And we said, okay, but we don't have a deck. So he said, okay, theek hai, we will work and get it done. Then every week he used to tell me, now I want you to make a market size slide for me. Now I want you to make me a model. Now I want you to think about competition and give me a sense. And over like 5-6 weeks, he made me make some 8 or 10 slides of a deck, which we thought we'll go and present to his whatever other person at SAF. When we got to that meeting, it turned out it was an IC meeting, and there was the entire partnership, 10 people sitting, and they had all these questions which we were answering. Okay, this is what the product does, this is why it's big, etc., etc. And this is why we think the market size is what it is. We did not think that, we just had it on that slide because we had just thought about it 1 week back. But we just answered those questions, and I remember from that meeting when I was pitching, one person, one senior partner, he asked, he showed enormous surprise on our revenue numbers. So he asked us what your revenue is. We said, hey, we are doing 7 lakh rupees per month. And he was like, he almost jumped out of his chair saying, in India, you are selling software to SMEs in 2013 and you are making 7 lakh rupees every month. And, with your rack team of people, he said, yes, we are doing that. So that was sort of the point at which they decided.
In fact, I was going to ask you the question that there must have been a huge difference. Having, 7 lakhs in that time is almost, I would say, like saying 70 lakhs at seed today. क्योंकि उस वक्त नहीं होता था. It would not happen, right? What that must have given you immense amount of confidence going into that meeting, having those kind of numbers behind you.
I was so ignorant. I did not even know it was going to be an IC meeting. What do I say? So I did not need confidence. I was just indifferent. Hey, I'm just telling you about my business. If you'll invest, fine. Otherwise, anyway, my goal is fine. I have hit 5 lakh rupees a month. I'm going to be fine. We'll
And were you
survive.
profitable at 7 lakhs?
I mean, when the founders are taking 25,000 rupees salary, how does it matter? So,
Right. And how big was the team at that time?
we had, I think, we had like 4 or 5 employees, and there were 4 founders.
And small team has had to innovate a lot.
Innovate. I mean, I don't know whether you'll call it innovation. It is just that we were selling something that other people wanted and willing to pay us about 50,000 rupees a month. So yeah.
So then what happened after that IC meeting?
They gave us a term sheet, and we were like, okay, this is very interesting. I went to one entrepreneur to get feedback. He said, this term sheet looks awesome. We said, okay, great, let's take it. So,
How much did you guys raise?
This was the first round, like 3 crore rupees or something.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
3 crore rupees in 2004. Wow, that's an amazing round.
It was a small round. At least
In that term, to get Saif to put in 3 crores, I mean,
okay.
it had some value to it. A lot of value to it, rather.
Yeah,
And,
perhaps you're right.
and so now you got 3 crore. Let's say it's come into the bank account. And after that, how did the journey change with that infusion of capital for you?
Not much, because in hindsight, 3 crores is not a lot of money. So it was just about maybe 12, 13 months of runway at like a 25 lakh rupee kind of a burn.
Correct.
And so we hired some people. We had some more folks in engineering. We had some couple of sales folks. We had a couple of operations folks. And the team size would have been about 20 odd lakh rupees. And 20 odd people spending about 25 lakh odd rupees over whatever revenue we were making. And that lasted about 12, 13 months. In those 12, 13 months, our revenue went from 7 lakhs to about 21 lakhs.
Okay.
And so at that point, SAF came back and said that you're growing well, come to IC again and pitch again. And we said, okay. And we did not know how much money they will give us, will they give us, why will they give us. We had no notion. We were just busy executing in this very tough space. So we went and again made a pitch. This time we came back and they said, fine, 21 lakhs looks very good to us. We'll give you $5 million.
Wow.
So we said, okay, great, let's take $5 million.
And that must have been a huge jump in valuation for you. $5 million would have been what, about 30 odd crores at that time? 32?
32 crores, yeah, roughly.
Yeah. And did you think that you would get the 5 million?
No, again, before the IC meeting, I had no idea. And even after the IC meeting, I had no idea. I only had an idea when Mukul came back and said that this is what we are doing. So, okay, this is interesting. We had no notion.
And then after that, you raised a total of how many rounds?
3 rounds. We did one more after that.
Okay.
No, sorry. No, we did one before. So an angel sort of round we had done before SAF.
Achha. So this was your final round?
Yeah.
Okay.
After this, we did a bridge at some point, but that's all.
And so how big did the business get from there before ICICI came in?
So by 2018, we were like 120 people. We were spread across 4 offices. We had customers in 80 different districts. And we were sitting at about 30% market share amongst car dealers in India.
Wow.
And the company was profitable.
Where were you revenue-wise?
Revenue-wise, we were like 16-70 crore rupees at that point. Annually.
Annual. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And profitable?
And profitable.
Wow.
With some like 5-10 lakh rupees left over every month.
Okay. Wonderful. That's a really good business, right? To be in.
Yeah.
And then eventually, what happened with then ICICI Lombard?
Yeah.
I think came in, which is an insurance company.
Yeah, that's a very interesting story. So one thing that had happened, 2 things other is, so our software was primarily used for service marketing and insurance marketing. So when a dealer has to sell insurance or they have to sell service and call your car back into the workshop to get service, that's how people use the software primarily for. There were sales use cases, there were inventory use cases, other use cases, but the primary things were service and insurance for us. And what had happened was that even though we were sitting at 30% dealer market share in India, we were sitting at about 50% car market share in India because these were larger dealers.
Got it.
So half of all cars existed in our database with their mileages, with their service histories, with their insurance histories.
Really?
Bunch of other things. And the company was profitable. There was no money to be spent here. We were almost a monopoly in India. There was no other company doing CRM in the dealership space in India. So it was a very interesting acquisition target for a bunch of people. And we had a couple of growth fees. So in 2018, end or 2019 early, we had a couple of growth VCs showing us interest that, okay, take money, go to the US, sell software there. And we're evaluating those things. We're talking to people, trying to understand how that would work out. And in that process, we started getting acquisition interest from a bunch of people. So because of the sort of unique nature of the asset. So Car Dekho gave us a term sheet, Acco gave us a term sheet, Paytm gave us a term sheet, Spinny gave us a term sheet. And while these conversations were going on, at that point, from somewhere, ICICI Lombard got wind of it, and it was an inbound. And they said, why don't you come and meet our CEO one day? So we went and we met him. We told him everything that we were doing. Mr. Bhaskar Dasgupta was the CEO at that point. Then we came back. Then they called us for a meeting again after 1 week. And just after 1 week. And we said, okay, fine, we'll go. Maybe there are some other questions. This time in the second meeting when we go there, they had a whole term sheet in front of us and they gave us a term sheet, and it was an all cash term sheet, and they were paying us 70% cash upfront.
Oh, wow.
So we said this is very interesting, and we thought that it made sense compared to whatever the growth VCs were offering. We thought this was interesting, and so we took it.
So you took it. Wow. And that, I mean, that was one of the there was a start of like an exit boom in India, right? Because until then, lot exits had come, but in spurts. But how did that feel to finish a journey? Like, let's say effectively 2013 onwards, when you started a journey, had a loss, or a rather loss, or you could say a shutdown, and then this journey, right? And which it seems like it just kept evolving as you went along, and suddenly you had an exit. What was that like?
I don't know. I was very grateful. I was very thankful to God. My biggest thing was that even though we were profitable, there would be some months when we would fall short a little bit. And it's not like we had massive cash reserves. In fact, our cash reserves were nothing. Sometimes we would be able to pay GST on time. Sometimes we'll not be able to pay GST on time. So that kind of mess was there. So, sometimes some employee would want an increment and we would not be able to give him. Then he would leave. So all of those, that's my 2018 life, or even 2017. So those were tough times. And so when this exit actually happened, when the money hit the bank, when we sort of paid out those bonuses to employees, when everything had happened, it was, I don't know, I was very grateful to God.
And after that, you joined ICICI for 3 years. I think you were there for 3 years as well.
Yeah.
But what was it like in terms of your team? Did they acquire the team as well? What was the...
Everybody. So we were 120 people. Every single person was acquired.
Okay.
And nobody left even. I mean, for the first year, exactly 0 people left. Even after 3 years, maybe, I don't know, maybe 40% of the people are still there.
That's very rare, actually, isn't it?
Yeah. It was a good deal. They structured a very good deal for everybody.
Acha. And in terms of investors, they were happy, good money for them on the table.
So, I mean, the first so the 2 rounds that SAF did, the first we would have paid them back, I think, some 12x or 15x or something like that. On the second round, we would have paid like some 2.5x or 3x, something like that.
Which is pretty good, I mean, considering.
Yeah, it was decent.
Yeah, because the second check was fairly large, right?
Yeah.
And so ICICI now suddenly, for the first time in your life, maybe Barclays being a bit of a taste, you're now going to work for a corporate. You were there for 3 years.
Yeah, but I did not really feel it that way, because ICICI Lombard, I mean, they structured the deal very intelligently. One thing they did was they made sure that we stay independent.
Okay.
We stay separate. We don't get absorbed in their IT team at all.
Really?
And we had very clear business targets. That, hey, when we're acquiring, you have 500 dealers, you have to get to 2,000 dealers in 3 years. And, along with all the milestones. And there were very specific retention milestones that, hey, we want insurance retention at your dealers to improve by whatever X%, Y%. And in sort of in lieu of that, they had given us independence that we don't want to sort of hamper.
That's a very interesting question to have, because this M&A thing, Clayton Christensen used to say that almost 90% of all M&As fail, right? Because the acquiring entity has no idea what they're acquiring. And sometimes they acquire a problem which would have been best kept outside the company. In fact, most of the M&As that I have seen, or at least witnessed from close quarters, have always ended in failure. Only maybe 2 or 3 that I can really count on my fingers, like Karza getting acquired by Perfios, or Confirm Ticket that got acquired by Ixigo. Both where I was an investor and very close to what was happening. Very smart acquisition strategies, right? So in your case, because you were now on both sides, right? You're saying that by keeping that innovation outside the company, and hence not subject to what a corporate structure in ICICI looks like, the 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, it actually helped the company continue and made this a very good acquisition for ICICI.
Yeah, I mean, it was intelligent. Their business team, I mean, and it's not a 9 to 5, it's a very sharp culture. So again, kudos to them. They have done really well. And their business leaders had very clear vision that what they want to achieve here, how they will go about doing it, and I would say, I mean, as good as it would have gone, I guess.
Really? Okay. And so after 3 years, you left.
Yeah, after 3 years I left.
Okay. And then I think you before Relentless, you had a bit of a gap.
No, so I had started Relentless. So the first sort of avatar of Relentless VC was that I started doing investments from my own sort of
Okay.
own money. So I set aside 4 crore rupees of my capital,
I see.
and I said I'll invest 10-15 lakh rupees, small chunks, in 20 to 25 companies, and build a thesis. And if these companies are doing well, then I will sort of, by the time my term is over, I will step out and start a fund. I will then invite other LPs. Otherwise, I will not do that. So in a sense, I had this cognizance that being an entrepreneur and being an investor are very different things.
Correct.
And I did not want to involve anybody else's money until I was sure that I'll make it back for them. So
this 4 crores, how are you going to source the deals? Were you already doing angel investing, or this was?
no, I had never done angel investing before.
Okay.
I had thesis, I had understanding, I had done it. I knew how to help
But you
companies.
had money after you exit?
Yeah, I had money, but I did not have sort of, even whether I'll be a good investor or not, I did not have any clear signs on that. I had not done it before.
Acha.
While I was running AutoNinja, I did not have any money at all. So zero investment anywhere. No public equity also. Because there's no savings also. No? So you're an entrepreneur, you're fighting what savings? So
Today,
nothing.
this is after Series A. Most founders are investors at this point.
We come from a different time, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah. So anyway, that was my thing. That these 3 years I'll invest, and we did that. We invested in 25 companies.
Acha.
We saw a bunch of companies. So our sourcing mostly happened from other angel investors.
see.
I knew about. We had a large group of about 50, 60 angel investors. A lot of deals came from there. A lot of deals also came from friends. And out of these 25 companies, we only invested in SaaS. And again, SaaS for US markets only. I had done SaaS in I have sold software in every single town in India. Personally, I have sold software in small towns, I don't know, Dehradun, Meerut,
And how
in
are you
Bihar,
finding these
Patna.
customers?
Okay, so when I was selling software for AutoNinja, it was a small community. So we used to sort of, dealers are a small community. So we take referrals and go and sell.
Acha.
So, so because I'd sold software in every single town in India, I had a much closer sense of what is the value of a SaaS product selling in India versus what the value of a SaaS product can be selling in the US. And those values are not, they're not proportional. They're exponentially different.
Acha.
So which is why the thesis for us was that we will invest in SaaS, but not for companies selling in India, but for companies building in India, but selling abroad.
Selling to the world.
Selling in, not even the world, US particularly.
That's a US particularly. Okay. And I like how you keep saying we, because you're one of the very rare people who started with, let's say, 4 or 5 crore pool of capital, but you also got a team together.
Yeah.
I think you got Nikhil fairly early in the journey.
Yeah, day one. So I was very clear that if I was going to do something like this, I was going to do it properly. I was not going to sort of half-ass it. So we've got together, and the thesis was exactly this: that 3 years we will do well. If we do well, only then both of us will sort of go to the market and raise money. Others will not.
Got it. And then the first company that you invested in, what was it doing?
Yeah. So as I said, let me just complete the thesis part, then I'll come to that answer. So the thesis was US SaaS, and in India it was B2B marketplaces. That's another thing we liked a lot. So B2B aggregation, capability aggregation businesses. So it's a term I have coined. I call it capability aggregation, where we have a startup which goes to another business, an SMB, and sort of outsources an entire department out of this SMB. So for example, you take an Udaan. They go to let's say a retailer of sorts, and in that retailer says that, hey, you have been doing procurement for aeons. Now you don't do procurement, I'll do procurement for you.
Achha.
Or fundamentally do procurement with me, or an off business, same pitch.
Correct.
Or an infra market, same pitch in different spaces. So fundamentally, these are companies which take your procurement department out, and then they aggregate on the other side a bunch of suppliers, so that net what happens is that at the end of the day, this SMB is able to procure at a larger assortment than they were doing before. Procure at better prices because of economies of scale than they were doing before. Better turnaround times for things that had to be delivered with more visibility and control on turnaround time. And also better credit because this is much more sort of organized than any wholesale market or mandi can ever be. So that's the fundamental thesis. And if you notice, the nature of these levers is that each of these 4 levers becomes better as the company scales. So this is the definition of a network effect. That as Udaan becomes bigger or as infra market becomes bigger, all of the SMBs that are procuring through them are going to get even better assortment, even better price, even better turnaround time, and even better credit. In which case, these things are sort of in a winner take all network effect situation. So those are the kind of companies that we invest in apart from US SaaS. So the first company I invested in is a company called ClaimBuddy, which is exactly this kind of a capability aggregation for the collection department within hospitals.
Okay.
So every hospital in India has a collection department employing between 3-4 people to maybe as many as 20 people, whose job is to collect money from insurance companies.
I see.
And again, the problem is that on one side there are hundreds and thousands of hospitals, and on the other side there are these 30 insurance companies. Now any hospital in their region ends up working closely with just 3 or 4 insurance companies, and the other 26 very tough to work with. So if you look at the receivables in any on the books of any hospital, you will see a lot of cases of 180-day receivables and whatnot from the same insurance companies. So this company
And
ClaimBuddy,
it's a working capital issue for this hospital.
yes, absolutely. So ClaimBuddy goes to these companies and says that, hey, you don't do collections. Outsource it to me, I will do collections, and I will aggregate that capability. So what will happen is that if you do collection, you do well with 2-3 companies and not so well against the other 26-27 companies. Let me do it. I do it not just for you, but 99 other hospitals, which is why I have relations with all 30 companies. So I can get this money much faster than you can. And second, because I have been doing this for some time, I have built a book, I have actual capability to underwrite your existing balance sheet receivable. So if you have 4 crore rupees of receivable, I can actually underwrite the damn thing and give you 3 crore rupees or whatever on day one. So your working capital is free and your people are free. You do what you do best, we'll do what we do best. And we will, of course, become stronger and stronger as we grow bigger and bigger.
Interesting. And how's ClaimBuddy doing now?
Quite well. So ClaimBuddy, I was the first person to say yes to ClaimBuddy ever. So I also teach a course at IIM Bangalore. And
I was going to come to that, but go ahead, please.
Yeah, it's a course on venture capital. And
you have a viral video on this one.
I don't know if it's viral or not, but yeah, I've put all of those course videos on online. So yeah, the founder's name is Kshitij, and he was a student. When I was teaching at IIM Bangalore, second year MBA students. He was a second year MBA student. He had not completed his MBA yet, and he was running ClaimBuddy sort of on the side or starting to run it on the side. And we started thinking how this would work out. How would this entire marketplace thing work out? How would network effects work out? And it happened.
And so after ClaimBuddy, I think you did 25 companies odd, right? I've seen the portfolio. I think there's some very early stage companies, but you've also done some little bit later stage companies also at much higher valuations as well. So was that, what were you, like, have you decided on which part of the thesis you want to be at?
Yeah, so again, first fund, there'll be some sort of, there'll be a little bit of dispersion will happen. Naturally, it happened. And now sort of that has given us absolute clarity that we want to be very clearly in the ClaimBuddy kind of situations where we are the first people saying yes. In fact, out of those 25, I think even now in the fund, maybe 13 or 14 are such where we were the first people to say yes.
Achha.
So much more of that. Already we have done a decent bit in fund 1. In fund 2, it will be much more of that.
Okay. And what's the check size? What are you looking at?
We want to invest 2 crore rupees.
And is there a percentage amount you want to take?
So, I mean, of course, that will also depend upon what the market dynamics are, because usually when we are investing 2 crores, we will not be alone. There'll be other folk as well. So, I would not like to comment on that. Not too worried about that.
But in your opinion, what is the kind of money required, let's say, for a SaaS company today? Because obviously costs have gone up, right? To build at least the first, or maybe let me ask you a question one before that. At which stage are you coming in? Are you coming at product, or are you coming at early revenues?
So, again, it depends. It depends on the space. It depends on the founder. It depends upon my belief on how far this guy is from PMF.
Okay.
Has PMF been achieved, not achieved? Will they be able to? So it's a complex thing. There's no thing. But I'll answer your first question, which is, has it become more expensive? So SaaS today is I'm a true believer. I think SaaS, as far as SaaS is concerned, is the most interesting opportunity the world has ever seen for software. See, look at the history of software over the past 40 years, okay? Anybody who has built software, whether you call it ERP or CRM or SAP or SCM or you call it whatever, okay? So any 3-4 digit combination, that software has been built to track human activity for the past 40 years. That, hey, somebody is doing work, now you go punch. You've done a meeting, now go punch. That is how software always been. For the first time in our life with large language models, now it's possible for software not to track work, but to actually do work.
Correct.
So humans who have always been doing work and then punching work back into a software are fundamentally going to become auditors of work done by large language models. It's a fundamentally different kind of a knowledge organization. And that shift is going to happen everywhere in the economy in the next 10 years, which means that every single piece of software ever written, every line of code written in the past 40 years is obsolete as of today. In the next 10 years, every single piece of software will be replaced.
Correct.
And it will be replaced, either the incumbent itself will do it, that Salesforce will be able to do it for themselves, or Oracle will be able to do it for themselves, or SAP will do it for some of their products. But for a large quantum, these incumbents will not win, and startups will have a real say. And that's what we are seeing in our early portfolio for Fund 2 as well, where wherever we have made commitments, we are seeing two kids step out of a company like Google or whatnot, start something. In 3 months, they have got pilots with large banks in the US. People paying them $100,000 plus for a team of 2 people. People accepting SOC 2 for a company of 2 people. Right? This has never happened before. If you wanted to do if you're doing a SaaS and wanted to do a pilot with, let's say, I don't know, Merrill Lynch, it would take you 3 years of prod building before you could get a pilot.
Right. But there is a subset of people, to add to that also believe that the advent of LLM could also spell the death of B2B SaaS.
Why? Someone has to build those things, right?
Yeah, but they're saying if it's just so much easier, you don't need to probably build a company around it.
So that's said by people who don't know how to build software.
But like you said, like today you can get an LLM model or even a ChatGPT to write code for you.
Yeah.
But how does that change the paradigm for a B2B SaaS company? Does it reduce cost?
Even a software engineer will become a software auditor.
Okay.
That someone, LLM wrote something. Correct. Is it good, not good? Are all the edge cases covered? Still a human being has to sort of audit.
So does that actually reduce the cost or the time to turn around a product?
Of course. Higher quality products can be done faster, better, cheaper. And this is not just for software, it's for anything out there. For medical advice, for legal advice, for accounting, for analytics, for anything. The entire economy.
And what do you think, like what would be the role of a VC now in this? Like how do you see our role in ensuring that you don't end up investing in something that could go obsolete? Because the LLMs are evolving rapidly at this point.
So VC business is arbitrage business. It's a business of knowing something more than other people know and then backing that knowledge with money. So it will be the same. So if you understand how LLMs are going to shape a certain space and you have a view and you find an entrepreneur who is early there, who is sort of making the right kind of product decisions, making the right kind of GTM decisions, then you back them, you work with them, you make sure your knowledge comes to bear.
Which actually leads to my next question, that when a founder reaches out to you, so you're very clear it has to be B2B SaaS, and you don't want to get into the edge cases where it looks like SaaS but it's something else. But if they're reaching out to you, what are the 5 questions they should be prepared to answer when they speak to you?
We have a 7-point framework.
Okay.
We want to understand market size. We don't want to invest behind markets which are not at least a few $1 billion in size. Because if it's a small market, then that's the fundamental AutoNinja constraint, right? That we are at 30% market share and we are still doing like, $2.5 million in revenue. So that should not happen. That's the first thing.
The market should not be so small that even if you scale, you can't really make it big.
The market should be big. Second, there should be some way of GTM that the founder has either figured out, or it's something that we know, or something that's obvious, but GTM has to exist. It can't be that you have this very amazing nuclear reactor, but you can't sell it to 100 people or 1,000 people in some time, because that again won't make money for me. As a VC, I have to find an exit in 7 to 8 years, right? So I have to find opportunities which go 100x in 7 to 8 years. So if your business is going to go slower than that, then it's not really my model to be able to work with you. You have to find other people who will have a different model. But VCs have a very clear 7 to 8 year model, so it won't fit. So GTM is the second thing. The third thing is differentiation. It is critical that whatever the startup is doing has to have very clear differentiation. If it doesn't have differentiation against competition, it will become a commodity and most likely not make money for me. The fourth thing has to be a place where incumbent response is something I can predict. In the sense, if you're building something where you're Perplexity, you're building a search engine. I have a huge problem there. Because yes, you might be ahead, you might be differentiated today, but the incumbent response from Google is dangerous. I mean, they can actually make you go to zero. So that's a problem for me. So incumbent response, something I spend a good amount of time with. Fifth is defensibility. Now these things, defensibility in the sense that there are some cases where whatever you build, you have defensibility because of switching costs or because of network effects. So I want that articulated at least in my mind. Even if it's not in the founder's mind, it should be in my mind, ideally in the founder's mind as well. Why would this thing be very, very tough to switch at scale? Not today, but let's say you succeed. You build a behemoth of a business. what will protect you against competition at that point. And if you can articulate it, fine. If you can't, then I have a problem. Or if I can't, then I have a problem. If I can articulate, I'm fine. Then the sixth thing we look at is market penetration. We don't worry about competition so much because every large VC success that has been there has been in places where it's the 15th mover and the 30th mover which has really won. Every single example you can take is like that. Google, Dropbox, Freshdesk, take whatever you want. Okay, these are all places where it's, I don't know, at least in the double-digit mover which ends up winning. So I'm not worried about competition. I'm worried about market penetration. If you're moving in a market which is already 30% penetrated by other players, that's a problem. If you're moving in a market which is 1% penetrated and there are 30 people fighting, great, awesome, do it. As long as I believe your differentiation, as long as I understand you, fine. Seventh and final thing for me is the team. I want to see mavericks. I want to see people who have taken tough decisions, people who have built things, people who have exceptional knowledge in one domain.
And what do you, I mean, these 7 points are very, very clear, but what do you also believe about when they should start really finalizing that product? Because I think and I've seen this a lot in SaaS, almost 40% of Artha's portfolio is in SaaS. So almost 50 companies in SaaS we've done till date. And what we've realized that two kinds of founders that we've recognized. One, that they fall in love with the product first, and then they try to fit the customer inside that journey somehow. And one that says, I'll use, it doesn't have to be, it may be a rudimentary software for now. It may not have, may look like a leaky plane, but it needs to work. I need to understand exactly what the customer is, how they're interacting with it, and then I'll build the real final product. Which one of those two approaches do you subscribe with?
So the latter approach mostly, because that's the enterprise SaaS and even the mid-market and the SMB SaaS approach. There's also the horizontal SaaS approach, that's the Postman approach or the Dropbox approach, in which the second approach will not work at all. Because fundamentally what you're doing is resembles more a consumer company than a B2B SaaS company.
Right.
And in there, it's going to be mostly your gut, your own understanding of the market, your own articulations, and whatever churn rates and retention rates that I can see with whoever consumers you have. Customers you have. So yeah, I mean, you can't build a Postman and go and ask developers, hey, do you want a tool to do curl on UI? No one will say yes. Right. What's the point?
And then, what can, let's say, founders expect from Relentless beyond the money?
Yeah, so we have a very clear thesis on helping early stage founders out. First of all, we want to build a fund, or we are building a fund for very early stage founders only.
How do you define this very early stage?
Just two kids who have just thought of something, who have understood something about the market and are trying to explore.
Beyond ideation or after ideation?
Either is fine. Okay. But again, as I said, the key thing is we want to be the first check in. Okay. So it's usually very early, and again, these are sort of nebulous concepts to define, but hopefully I've given you some sense. Okay. And yeah, so sorry, I forgot your original question.
What do you do beyond the money?
Beyond the money. So yeah, so we are building a fund which is specializing in those journeys, those first 1 or 2 years of company building, in which you really need a lot of advice. You really have a lot of knowledge gaps, whether it is about market sizing, whether it is about GTM, whether it is about how to hire people, what are the best people to hire, what are mistakes not to make, where to hire people from, whether it is to raise money, what kind of angels to bring in together, what kind of VCs to bring in together. So that journey, the first couple of years, or first 1 year, that's where we are specializing in.
But are you also then coming before the friends, family, and fools?
Along with friends, families, and fools. So we want to be fools, we are fine. I mean, so the thesis is we are coming in with that knowledge, not to be foolish. Okay. We will try not to be foolish 20 times. I'm sure we'll succeed a few times.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I think I love the conversation because it's moved at such a pace, right? Like it literally has moved at a very fast pace, but I think you're also giving back to the ecosystem, and that's what I wanted to come back to, because you started teaching this course about 6 years ago, I believe.
Yeah, so I'm actually very thankful to IIM Bangalore. So after my MBA, so they incubated us for 1 year. They gave us office space. They also gave us hostel space. We did not have any money, so they extended 1 year of our hostel time. So, and then during that incubation, then I've always been associated with them. I keep going back and I used to go back and take some kind of sessions for the incubation center there, sometimes for students there. And over time, I had built up all these decks, on various kinds of things. And then when I was just going through these ICICI Lombard talks in 2018, I and the professor I used to work with, still work with him, Dr. Suresh Bhagwatula. Were discussing what to do. Can we sort of make all of this thing into a course and offer it to MBA students? And we said, okay, let's do it. So we offered. I went and taught, and the first time was insane. It was quite a lot of mess. Content was not ready. Something was ready. Something was not ready. Some cases were prepared. Some not prepared. But then over time, it started becoming better, and I just loved that part of my life.
So is this like a diploma course, or how does it work at IIM?
No, so it's a proper course. So it's an elective.
Okay.
So any second year MBA student, when I offer it either in term 5 or term 6, so it's a 6-term course, an MBA is 6 terms at IIM Bangalore. In term 5 or term 6, I offer it, and then it's open to everybody. Anybody can take it, and usually there
But
are about
it's
40
only
odd
for the
seats.
students that are at IIM. This is not the executives or something can't join it directly.
No, so it's for students. So either executive program or MBA program. Mostly it's MBA program. It gets filled up. If there's some seats left, then some executive MBA students can also
join
come
it.
in.
Oh, wonderful.
Once I taught only to executive MBA students, but mostly I've only taught to MBA students. And then last year I took all of that material, at least a large chunk of it, and I cut it down into small videos and put it up on YouTube for anybody
Yeah,
to
that's
see.
what I heard. That some of those videos have gone really viral.
Thanks for thinking that. I don't know how to define that, but at least I'm happy that people are finding some value and seeing it.
No, fantastic conversation so far. I think this is the fastest I've ever gone to a rapid fire while covering all the points I wanted to cover. But really enjoyed the conversation, Kshitij. I think really interesting kind of fund that you're building. But in the current, let's say the last 10, 12 companies, which one of these companies are you most excited about?
I love what Signos is building. So
Tell us
Signos,
about Signos, yeah.
Signos is an application performance monitoring tool, an APM tool.
Okay.
And if you've heard of tools like Datadog, New Relic, Splunk, Dynatrace, these are all public companies in the US. This market is, I don't know, $16-18 billion of software sales every year. It's a massive market. Application performance monitoring tool, including whatever Amazon has and Azure has and whatnot. And this market is also some of the most costly software that anyone can ever buy. So these guys, Signos, started up with this vision that, hey, it's finally software, can we make it open source and sort of free for most people, and of course charge at the higher end? So that was the thesis with which they started, and they're doing a fantastic job. I think they are far ahead of any other open source APM tool out there in the world.
In the world,
In the
wow.
world, yeah. They are sitting at some 17,000 odd GitHub stars. Some, I don't know, few million Docker downloads. It's insane what they've built, and they've done it in a very nice way. Last year they raised their Series A from a Silicon Valley based fund, so doing very well.
In fact, we had a conversation on this company, from what I remember.
We must have, yeah.
Yeah, and because I come from a traditional like, hey, dhanda kidhar hai, paisa kaise banayenge, and he said, listen, you don't understand what these numbers actually mean, and I'd love for you to talk about that, because there is definitely a conversation that happens that open source versus not charging are two different things altogether.
Yeah.
If you could just maybe for founders, especially in the SaaS field, need to understand this very well.
So there are spaces out there, especially in developer tools, where individual developers can really benefit from a tool. Let's say it's Git, or let's say again Signos, okay, or bunch of hundreds of other tools. But individual developers may not have the capacity to pay, okay. And anyway, in this space, developers prefer open source tools, which they can integrate with their workflows, which are free to integrate. They don't have to pay for those tools, and they are also sort of, because of the open source nature of the tool, some assurance of quality is there, some assurance of security is there, because it's open source. So anybody could have found a bug if there was going to be a bug. So because of those reasons, a lot of developers, of course, prefer open source tools versus, let's say, paid counterparts. But when it comes to enterprises, if you have to adopt an open source tool, there has to be SOC 2 certification, otherwise you're not through. There has to be SAML that has to be there. Some kind of other identity management solutions have to exist. A lot of other things are needed that enterprises need, but developers don't need.
I
So
see.
in those kind of spaces, or individuals don't need. So in those kind of spaces, open source is a beautiful strategy, because you open source the tool. If you open source it, it will compete well against the closed source tool. So again, rich spaces like APM, it's very good that, hey, you have a free tool which is, let's say, at par or doing really well against, let's say, established competitors like Dynatrace and Splunk and whatnot. And maybe people can use you out there, and they will start integrating you. And then finally, when it comes to a stage where enough developers or enough momentum exists, then at a CIO level also, it makes sense to just buy that tool. And of course, when they need those SOC 2 and SAML and those identity management things, they will pay you for it.
And then how do you value something like this? Because I don't think they'll ever make revenue until they're doing.
No, they are sitting at like $500,000 revenue right now.
Acha.
So the thing is that the question
How do they make that revenue? How would a open
enterprises
source
pay.
enterprises pay?
Open source developers don't pay you.
Acha.
When enterprise need features which you don't provide in the open source
Customized
license, you give them the proprietary license.
Interesting. Okay. And so you were saying that how do you value this such companies?
So the question here is, how do you value a winner-take-all company?
Okay.
Let us say you were valuing Naukri.com in 1998, or you were valuing, I don't know, Uber or Ola in 2006 or 7 or whenever they started, right? How do you value? So these companies are winner-take-all because of the network effect that exists in the space. It's not a property of the company; it's a property of the space. That this space is a winner-take-all space. Okay. If Naukri.com is leading, how do you value that? Okay. Maybe there are no revenues today. Maybe there are no profits today. But the point is that in 20 years or in 15 years or in some X number of years, if this company is the only winner remaining, nobody else can compete against it for whatever network effect reasons.
What's the value?
What's the value then? And then you just discount that. You said, hey, I want a 40% IRR or 80% IRR. I just want to discount this company at 80% annual for the next 10 years, and you value it.
And look at the flip side of that, right? Because again, because there's not going to be lots of adoption, but maybe the revenue is not going to be commensurate with other companies in your portfolio. But what if you're going wrong? Or let's say, when do you know how to pull the plug? For us VCs that have not done this kind of stuff, this is a very interesting question, right? Because hey, it's doing a lot, but you know what? Maybe I think we need to pull the plug. Either we don't invest more, or we just say, hey, this is not.
Thankfully, that's not a problem I deal with. I am an early stage fund. I give people 2 crore rupees, and then I have no bearing on bridges, really.
Do you not do follow on?
So we do follow on, but it's a very small amount.
Right.
We will not meaningfully do follow ons for anybody.
Maybe I'm just saying it more from a understanding perspective. Like if let's say you had, maybe not signals, but like you could say company X, and you need to decide, hey, in the next round, is this company going the way I think is going to still continue being winner takes all?
Yeah.
Or do I need to?
VC is an arbitrage game. It's an inside information game. If you are on a company's board and you don't know it's good, then I don't know what to say more. You have to take a very clear information-based call that, hey, I am on the board of this company. I know about this space. I know more about anybody else in the whole world. I will take my bet.
Got it. Wonderful. I really love the clarity of thesis, Kshitij. Obviously, it comes from a place because you've been a founder in the space, and I think, like you said, it wasn't even called SaaS, called software, right? So I really loved this conversation. I would love to move quickly to rapid fire because I just think there's this energy that's just going back and forth at the moment, and it's really been interesting and exciting. So I'll explain the rules of rapid fire. I've got about 10 to 12 questions right here with me. I'm going to ask these questions to you one by one. Whatever first comes to mind, right? Just answer them. Some of them are questions that I ask all the time. Some of them just a little bit customized to your experience. So are you ready for rapid fire?
I'll just make one caveat. I'm really bad at this.
But let me see if I can get these answers out of you. Right? It'll be my challenge. Let me be a little bit relentless here.
Okay.
So, what's the last book you read that profoundly impacted you?
What profoundly impacted me last time were not Clayton Christensen's books, but his case studies. So
brilliant guy.
The US Steel versus the Nucor case study is something I absolutely opened my mind about how disruption works. And so not his books though. His books are really academic. So
I still love his book, How Will You Measure Your Life?
I've not read that.
Fantastic book. Love that book just because of it tells you to start thinking from the end in mind to decide where you are today. Work-life balance, myth or reality?
I've always been a workaholic, working some 14 hours, 15 hours every day, 7 days a week, all through my career. Right up till the moment I had a son in 2021.
Wow.
And
3 years old now.
3.5 years old now. And any time I can get in my day, half an hour, there's no calls, but I have half an hour break. It all goes with him, and I love that. So yeah, work-life balance to spend time with kids, totally for it.
So when you wake up in the morning, you open your eyes, what's the first action you undertake?
Coffee.
Even before checking the phone, nothing, just wake up, coffee.
Yeah, phone inadvertently happens, but yeah, coffee.
Let's see. A quote or a song that motivates you on a particularly difficult day.
खुद ही को कर बुलंद इतना, इसलिए भगवान भी तुझसे पूछे कि तेरी रज़ा क्या है.
रज़ा क्या है? Yes.
When you're at your deathbed or when you're dead, God asks you whether you want to go to heaven or hell, you decide.
And why that quote?
It's a quote about ambition, about persistence, about perseverance, about also the purpose of life to some extent, that you have to life is not meaningless. It's not purposeless. Your time on earth here is about doing something, building something, creating something. It's not. It's not about. Uh, it has a meaning.
What's one app you're obsessed with at the moment?
Obsessed with
Yeah.
app. Okay, I'm not obsessed with apps. I use Instagram, I use x.com like if anybody else. I'm a very avid YouTube user. I see a lot of documentaries on physics, chemistry, all sorts of things, geopolitics.
Any new app that you've recently got hooked to?
App.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if let's open it up. Let's say app or maybe a
I can recommend some YouTubers who have been doing a
yeah.
great
Let's
job.
let's like give me one.
So I love the work of Sabina Hossenfelder.
Okay.
She's a physics commentator, and she comments on the state of physics, on the state of science all across the world, and very, very good comments. Does a great job. I like the work of Peter Zahan, although he's quite repetitive, but I like his work. He has a very interesting view on geopolitics, and he puts out a video almost once every couple of days, and very instructive on what's happening in China, in Israel, in US, at least how the US Washington DC policymakers are thinking. He gives a very good view on that.
Very interesting. We'll put the links to all those YouTubers in the comments below. I've got a few now, a little bit of crystal gazing questions, but let's see. If there was a time machine that allowed you to speak to yourself when you were 18, what is one piece of advice you would love to give yourself?
Ta meetha mat khao. Don't eat sweet this much. Eat, but don't eat this much.
But you're very fit for saying that.
Yeah. That means when you're middle aged, you don't get to eat at all.
I see. Okay. What's one hobby or talent that most people do not know you possess?
Hobby. So teaching is a hobby, but people know that I teach. Um, I
Any
swim.
sport? Oh, you swim.
I swim. I play table tennis quite well. I used to play cricket quite well, but people know that I play cricket. Table tennis people don't really know.
My last question for today. Looking back, which is one Indian startup that you wish that you had invested in?
As an investor, these are all the successes that are there. So um,
But one that, like maybe also because it's maybe could be a SaaS company, could be non-SaaS also. They say, hey, I would have loved to have been an investor in this because of the journey.
so the thing with the problem I'm finding when I'm not finding it tough to answer that question is I have not evaluated those companies as an investor because I was not investing at all when those companies were being born. So if I say, for example, that I would have loved to invest in Dream 11,
Right.
that's a moot point because by the time I started investing, it was a very last.
Yeah, sometimes, but these are really crystal gazing. It's like who do you want if you could have dinner with somebody, like those kind of questions. But is there a company that you really admire and you wish that you had been a part of that journey?
Yeah, SaaS companies, especially Freshdesk, wonderful company, would have been love to have been a part of that. Could not possibly have been because they started even before I started. So
But what do you love about that company, Freshdesk?
Proving that you can in the US market do GTM setting out of India without actually. So the traditional advice was you want to sell in the US, you have to put feet on the street there.
That's true.
These guys disproved that.
I really enjoyed this conversation. I know they were standing with coffee over there. I said, listen, let's not stop this vibe. Thank you so much for attending, for coming. Any last final advice for founders and listeners?
Oh, my advice to general audience always is that if you're curious about entrepreneurship, if you're thinking about entrepreneurship, the one mistake that you should not make is I call it the killer idea fallacy. Don't think that you are restricted. So many students tell me that I will start something when I get a great idea. That's a fallacy because that's not how ideas work. Nobody starts with a killer idea. If you look at the story of anybody who has succeeded in entrepreneurship, or at least the vast majority of them, you'll realize that they've started their startup in year one, and then they started their real startup, which started succeeding after 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years.
Yeah, and probably the 10th iteration of that idea.
Yes. So, yeah, even if you think it's the same idea, it's not the same idea. The idea evolves a lot. Nobody starts with a killer idea. People start with some bad idea, which eventually improves if you're persistent enough and you keep at it, you keep going at it year after year after year. Then it eventually becomes a good idea. And it's not on day one.
And let me also say that also applies to most venture investors, right? Whatever thesis we start with, it's usually the second or third iteration of that that at least starts making some sense because you start seeing some results out of it. But once again, Kshitij, really love the intensity, really love the conversation. It really was, enlightening because you come with a very strong mindset of where you want to be and what you're doing. And that quote, "Khud ko kal buland itna," definitely you can see that as a part of your personality. Thank you once again. Thank you so very much once again.
It was nice. Thanks, Salman.
Thanks.